Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview RJ Meir, who is the Florida Caniac. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, sir. Appreciate the invite. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about, of course, how you started your sports blog?
It's quite simple. I'll kind of go back a few years way down the road here. So I actually played a little bit of pro hockey for the Florida Everblades, got on there as an equipment manager and things like that. And I kind of had got an interesting call up where at the time when I got called in, they didn't have any goalies because they all got called up to the other leagues and things like that. So I got to play two games with them and kind of go from there. But during my time as an equipment manager and all my times with other affiliates like Greensboro and Albany and even Orlando when the Seals were a thing back in the day. I got to be in the benches a lot as an equipment guy and, being behind the scenes and things like that. So a lot of my interactions with the locker rooms and the players and the coaches and the staff and the personnel, that's kind of where it all came from. So I just wanted to share those experiences with everybody and give them an actual true player's perspective of the whole thing. There's analysts out there that kind of do the same thing, but they're not giving you the real story. They're giving you pretty much the TV version of it in a way. So my stuff is more based on what really happens in those dressing rooms and those benches and on the ice and things like that.
Can you talk about, of course, how you came up with covering the Carolina Hurricanes?
Well, the Hurricanes was an affiliate of the Florida Everblades. So they were the ones that kind of gave me my big shot. And I wasn't able to play anymore because of the multiple injuries I have. And they were nice enough to fly me up there for the Stanley Cup Finals and watch Game 7, which is really cool. And they presented me with a nice memento of my time in a way with the affiliation whatsoever. So they gave me a jersey with my name and number on it and a Stanley Cup logo patch from the Carolina Hurricanes themselves. That's hanging on my walls here in this room.
That's pretty amazing. Can you talk about, of course, how what do you do with the Hurricanes whenever you go to the games?
And I kind of know a few people in and outs. I'm pretty good friends with Forsland and Tracy, which is pretty cool. And Maniscalco have gotten really close over the years. Every time I come up to Raleigh and things like that. And George Alves and I have been communicating because I get a few pieces of equipment from him. With that said, I mostly am there as a fan. So when I go with a few friends here and there. Usually it's a little bit different types of crowds from every time I go up there because everybody wants to hang out when I'm around there, which is pretty cool. And it's a nice feeling to have out there. So I'm there at the tailgates because if you're not at a tailgate, you're not a Caniac. It's just that simple. There at the games, I usually pick the same type of seats all the time, and different people are around me. And I just sit there, and as a fan, I share my experiences of what really goes on out there, and people seem to enjoy it, and I just continue with it here on out.
Can you talk about, of course, the time whenever you did the hurricane warning sirens?
Oh, oh, the sound siren. Yeah, that was a pretty cool experience. When I kind of started this whole thing and kind of made it more of a YouTube viral sensation, the Carolina Hurricanes Booster Club kind of hooked me up with this whole thing. So they put my name in a ring to kind of be a part of it. It happened to be during one of the college nights. It was against the Colorado Avalanche. I think it was East Carolina's college night or something like that. So I got to sound the siren for the second period. It's on my Facebook page. It's really cool and all that. So it was kind of a weird, out of blue thing. I didn't think it was going to be a thing that would happen. I got selected. That was pretty darn cool. To add on to that, I want to say the year after, 2 years after that, they actually got me to do the fan tunnel experience too. So I got to go down there as the boys got back on the ice for the third period of one of the games as well.
Can you talk about the fan tunnel and what the process of getting selected for that is?
Well, most of it is actually season ticket holder access. Mostly, they usually get the first dibs of it. I'm sure there's certain special guests or some sort of cameo appearances that get to go out there as well. I know Hamilton the Pig is kind of the more popular one that gets that experience overall because who doesn't love Hamilton the Pig, especially Dougie Hamilton himself, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I got selected just out of the blue on that one because they know I was visiting. They knew I'm the Florida Caniac, and why not give him a chance while he's here for the 2 games he's able to visit in Raleigh, which is really nice. So it's it's more of a season ticket holder thing, that's for sure. Another a nice perk to have out there. And they just kind of randomly select it, or you kind of put your name into what game you want, and if it works out, great. If not, then they put you in another game for sure.
Can you talk about, of course, your podcasts?
Podcast is still kind of a newer thing. I'm more known for the YouTube channel, the Florida Caniac Network. I got 2 stations on there, which is the Florida Caniac Perspective, which is what this is all about. And there's a new channel on there called Park Bites, which I won't get into too much because that's nothing to do with this. The podcast is something that is kind of a slow build. This is more of a 10 to 15-minute show. That's it, and I select a fan to get on there, and I have them share their experience, what it's like to be a fan, and we talk about certain topics and things like that. One of the topics, one of my favorite episodes I've done so far, was one of my first ones with Darth Caniac. He's the one that literally looks like Darth Maul on the ice. You've probably seen him on a few clips here and there when they show fans out there. He was just showing me what it's like to be Darth Caniac and how he interacted and things like that, and kind of how that all started. So, and we were talking about certain topics. And at the time, it was the Stanley Cup playoffs and who's going to be the team's MVP and who's going to score a few goals here and there. So, but it's more of bringing the fans back into it. It's more fan on fan stuff, not just a bunch of stupid sports talk that everybody likes, hears, and everybody does the same thing. So it's just more of, share your fan experience. Here's 10 to 15 minutes. Let's go to town.
Can you talk about some of your favorite moments as a Carolina Hurricanes fan?
Ooh, there's too many of them. Let's start with the obvious one. The day they won the Stanley Cup, I was 7 rows from the ice in the middle of the center, in the center of it, and it was one of the coolest experiences ever for sure. Everybody was standing, nobody was sitting down. Literally, nobody was sitting down. Once Aaron Ward got that first goal, nobody was sitting down until the second period when everybody sat down and the intermission started and things like that. So, but come the third period, it just got nuttier and nuttier and nuttier. And then when Edmonton scored, it kind of sat down. But then when Carolina got the 2-1 lead and held on to that thing, it just went crazy. When Cam Ward had that amazing save to avoid the tie, nobody got off their nobody got off their feet. It was just that simple. When Justin Williams put the empty net goal in, it was you couldn't hear anybody, but you couldn't hear the person next to you. You couldn't even hear yourself think. It was so loud. And then the Stanley Cup came out. Gary Bettman was out there. We're one of the few fans that won't boo him for obvious reasons. So it's just that's one of the best experiences that any fan can really enjoy. If you're there when your team wins the Stanley Cup, it is so much different than. And I've only witnessed it. I've only witnessed Carolina winning the cup because they've only won it one time. Living in Tampa, now that I've seen Tampa win the Stanley Cup twice, and following them in a way, it's definitely a different experience, especially with everything that's happened recently. But when Tampa's 04, watching those fans win the Stanley Cup on TV versus being there when your team wins the Stanley Cup, 2 different stories whatsoever.
Can you talk about some of the chants and the music that happens during the Hurricanes game?
Absolutely. So let's start with the obvious thing. I have to give a shout out to Mike Whiting. This is the Carolina Hurricanes team ambassador. Awesome dude, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. This guy plays a giant like horn, like a plastic horn. I'm not sure what the name of it's called, but he does 3 little dun dun dun, and everybody chants, "Let's go Canes!" And it gets louder and louder and louder every time. And it comes sporadically. You never know when he's going to do it. It could either be the start of the game, it could be the middle of a power play, it could be the middle of everything. That's one of the main chants right there. The other chant is what we call cheaters never win. This is when the other team gets a penalty and goes into the box, and once they slam that door, you hear the Law and Order dun dun at the beginning, and then we chant cheaters never win. And then there's a few other things out there that I think there was a section up in the 328 section of the Canes, sorry, PNC Arena, and they've always done their own chants and things like that. I can't repeat a few of them because of, I'm sure there's kids listening to this or watching or whatever. But those are the two main ones that go out there for sure. There's a few things about Aho, and the other big part is not really a chant, but when our announcer yells out a goal, he's got a distinct way of saying every single player's name, much like most of the goal announcers and things like that. But this one is just way above all. Aho, he really stretches out the A in Aho, so everybody follows along with that one. Everybody follows along Dougie Hamilton, Justin Williams when he was scoring. You name it, he follows that. Everybody just follows the voice of that. So it's not really a chant, but that's always a fun one to witness and be a part of as well.
Can you talk about, of course, how the Carolina Hurricanes came up with the name Bunch of Jerks?
Oh, yes, I can. So enter Don Cherry. Don Cherry was commenting about the storm surges and things like that because two seasons ago now, Carolina started to celebrate their victories at home, where when they win, they would perform different types of things called storm surges, whether it's, McGinn throwing the Thor hammer down and everybody splashing around, or Justin Williams leading the charge against the glass here and there, Svechnikov sliding into the net, or one of my personal favorites, Justin Williams bowling everybody down. And then another personal favorite is the March Madness version that Jacob Slavin slam dunked the basketball in. Well, Don Cherry was asked about his opinion on this one, and he doesn't like it. He's an old school type of guy. He's obviously no longer in the hockey community for, let's face it, reasons that we don't want to discuss. And he just simply said, "These guys are a bunch of jerks. I know he doesn't like it. It's not for the game and things like that. What a bunch of jerks." And oh my, the Carolina Hurricanes media organization, the behind the scenes, they came up with a T-shirt that literally says "bunch of jerks" on it, and the entire team follows suit on it. And a few games later, a few weeks later, they won a game and they put "bunch of jerks" on the ice and tossed free T-shirts to fans out in the stands after the game. So you could thank Don Cherry for the "bunch of jerks" thing. Luckily, he didn't coin it and try to patent it or anything like that. So it looks like Tom Dundon made a pretty good profit on the whole "bunch of jerks" name, thanks to John Cherry.
That's a pretty cool. Can you talk about the storm surge and how that got started?
So a few rumors are flying around this one. There's one that states that Justin Williams came up with it and kind of explained it to Rod Brindamore, to kind of go from there. And Brindamore agreed with it. The other rumor is Tom Dundon really wanted the storm surge to really, wanted them to do something different on the ice to kind of get more fans in the stands. I'm kind of leaning towards the third option where they all collaborated to kind of figure this out. But I think Justin Williams kind of took the charge of it. And it just started with something simple. Go out in the ice, kind of cheer your guys on. Usually, a lot of teams circle around center ice and kind of wave their sticks up in the air and said thank you, salute type thing. Carolina wanted to do something a little bit different. It was a skull clap start to get things going to kind of ramp the fans up and things like that. And what turned to a simple rush to the glass and kind of kind of shoulder toss yourself into it turned into something a little bit more elaborate. We're not sure what happened with that, but my assumption is every player wanted their own version of it. Hence why there was different people that kind of started it. Even Stormy got into the mix. And even Martin Hood got one of my other favorite ones where he brought Evander Holyfield in and brought a celebrity on the ice. So we've had two celebrities on the ice. We've had mascots on the ice. We've had Pucky the Whale on the ice doing these things. So it kind of was a team effort in a way, but I think it truly started with Williams, Brindamore, and Tom Dundon all in the same room.
Can you talk about what advice would you give upcoming fans, like sports fans, that are looking to start their own blog, such as you did?
Well, I will tell you this, it's a lot easier if you're starting a blog for a team that you live in the same city for. That is the big challenge that I personally have. So if you are going to be doing something like this, you got to really promote yourself out there. You just got to keep chatting it up and almost to the point where you might annoy a few people on social media. And that's quite okay because not everybody's going to listen and read your content. You have to understand that. But the more I would say the more the more looks you get, the more people that pay attention to you, the more likeliness you're going to have out there, the more exposure. That's the word I'm looking for, exposure. So you put content out there, you put exposure, you stay on top of things, you don't take little breaks here and there as best as you can, even though I'm a little bit of a victim of that. But as long as you keep the exposure out there, content. I will never forget that piece of advice that was given to me when I first started this thing. So the more content you have out there, the more people might actually pay attention to you, which is a good thing. And if they don't, so what? You're going to get those people that are going to be coming. But don't give up on it, whatever you do. If it's going to be a slow start, maybe for you, maybe not. It just depends on how much content you put out there and how much effort you put out there.
That's wonderful advice. Who are some of your favorite players, former?
Former players, one of my all-time favorites is Sean Hill, one of the defensemen for the Carolina Hurricanes at the time. That's one of my favorite Canes of all time. Paul Ranheim is up there. Rod Brindamore is obviously a huge favorite. Ron Francis is a big favorite. Ray Whitney's one of my personal favorites as well. You can't go wrong with a lot of these guys. Eric Stahl, I miss him. I'm glad he's doing well. If he was doing well in Minnesota, let's hope he does have some success over in Buffalo, along with another former Cane, Jeff Skinner. But those guys definitely are up there for me. Sean Hill, you're not going to hear that's not a big name. I know that. But I was a big sucker for defensemen and things like that. And of course, as a former goalie, I have to say Archer Zerbe. That little dude, he was all over the place around the net and things like that. There's many times where I have no idea how he stopped the puck, but hey, that was the reason why you love the game right there for sure.
Where can my listeners find your blog on social media?
Sure. So on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, the same follow is there at Florida Caniac for all three of them. It is trademarked. It is patent. You cannot steal it. It's that simple. But you can find me on YouTube on the Florida Caniac Network. Podcasts, you just literally type in Florida Caniac podcast and it pops right up. Or just Florida Caniac anything really, and it just pops right up. So not hard to find. Just literally go on your favorite YouTube, Facebook, whatever. Just search Florida Caniac and it pops right up.
Thank you again, RJ, for your interview, and best of luck with the Florida Caniac Sports Blog.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, RJ, for your interview, and best of luck.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.